Hello there, I'm Gary Dorman from Gary Lee Panel Craft. Today we're going to be showing you different aspects of paintwork to car bodies. We're now going to do some car paint damage. This is dents that have been caused on a vehicle. First thing to do, get the panel clean so that we can see exactly what you're dealing with. Now, myself and my staff, we normally use some form of marker. So I've got a crown here to mark the dents out. So panel's clean, I'm looking down the side of it, I'm feeling it with my hand to see exactly where the damage is. So when I mark out where the damage is, I'm getting the area exactly which is affected. Sometimes once you start rubbing down with the machine or by hand, you lose where the edges are. Now, I don't know if you can catch all that damage on the camera, but from where I'm standing, looking down the side of it, there they are, the three main dents on the car. They're very shallow dents. Sometimes we'd use a machine to pull out the damage, which as a DIY person, is just far too expensive to do. But all these dents are fairly shallow. So now I've marked out the dents. I don't want to catch any of the other panels, so I'm getting the lock on the inside and putting the lock on. And what that will do, that will pull the door out. So when I'm rubbing down the door, I don't catch the adjacent panel. So I only get involved with the damage. If the door was closed, as I was rubbing down, I'll catch the rear quarter, which will just make a mess of everything else. Always try and keep it as small as possible. And that's the best way. So the damage now is all marked out. I'm going to get my Orbiter sander, otherwise known as a DA. It has an 80 grit DA pad on it. Any work that you're doing which involves a lot of dust, put a mask on, okay? So for this, I'm going to put a mask on, and then I'm going to rub down one with the machine and one by hand. Right, I've rubbed that down with the machine, I've kept it nice and flat. And in doing so, you can see the areas where it's nice and level, and you can see the areas in the middle, which is low. I've still scuffed the areas up, so when I put the filler in there, it sticks. But by looking at it, you can see straight away where your damage is. Okay, I'll do the same preparation on the bottom one if you haven't got a Orbiter sander or as a DA. This doesn't cause so much dust. It's nowhere near as quick. And the other trouble, doing it this way, you've got a lot more scratches which you've got to sort out as the job progresses. Right, that's done. Now, in doing so, there's a couple of little high spots here which has really come through a little bit too much. A couple of little bits that have come through. I'm going to get a panel beating hammer and just tap those bits in. Panel beating. This is a panel beating hammer. This is a normal hammer. If you haven't got a panel beating hammer, you can get away with this, because all you want to do, especially in the aspect of this repair, is just tap down those high spots. If you don't tap them down, and you put your filler on, these bits will come back again to haunt you, because they're proud. When the dent goes in, it makes a high spot around the surrounding areas. Sometimes you don't need to worry about it, other times you do. When you're rubbing them down, if you rub it down flat, if there's an obvious high spot, it will show as an obvious high spot. I've gone right through to bare metal there. But on the rest, all been rubbed down the same amount of time. I'm barely gone through to the primer coat underneath. So I know this bit is proud. The damage is in the middle, the high spot's around the outside. So with my panel beating hammer, I'm just going to flip that up. I'm not going to hit it in, because I want that damage to go back that way. So it pulls out a bit of this and loses the high spot back to where it should be. So get the panel beating hammer and just squeeze that up. Got a little high spot there. On there, and it's proud there as well. When you fill it with your hands, it don't really feel any different, to be honest with you. But you have achieved what you want to do. A little tap, no need to whack the life out of things, it's not needed. All you need is a light little tap just to squeeze that area, that high spot, back into where it should be. Now, this is ready to have a skimmer filler. Go put a skimmer filler on the car that's got the damage on the door. We use two different makes of filler. We use a more heavier filler for doing the main part of the dent, and then when we want to finish it off, we use a finer filler. The biggest problem you get with the heavier fillers, it causes pinholes. So when you spray it, there's little spots on it. So the fine filler, in general, takes 95% of that out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix up some filler with the coarse filler that we've got here. And then a little bit later on, after I've rubbed that down, we'll then finish off with the fine filler. So now, always make sure the lid stays on them. That way it keeps them nice and soft inside. We've sussed how much filler we need for the job. I think that should do. Put the lid back on it. With the hardener, this does adjust slightly, or quite a bit should I say, depending on the weather conditions. It's January at the moment, so it's a bit chilly, so I'll use a bit more hardener to help the material dry a bit quicker. When you're mixing up the filler, flatten it out, because the last thing you want is air in there. So all the time, turn it round and you flatten it out, which will push all the air out. It's a nice ready colour. I put protective gloves on. There's nothing worse than getting a big lump of filler on your hand. It does come off eventually, but doesn't really look that nice. So always protect yourself. Keep it stirring so the whole material goes to the same colour. The spreader that I'm using to mix the filler up on, I've gave it a little rub down on the good edges that I'm going to use, one for mixing it up with, and I'm going to use the long side for putting the filler in with, so when the filler goes on, it goes on nice. The nicer the filler goes on, the easier it is to rub down. Filler. Now we're putting the filler on, I always use the long area. I just find it gives it a better spread. As you can see, there's a nice skimmer filler on there. I'm going to do this little one over here first. Put it on there roughly, and then feather it out. If it looks nice, in general, it is nice. Nice little skimmer filler on there, a little rub down, that should be fine. Moving on to the bigger ones, a little scratch there. But basically, put the filler on there, so got a nice amount of material on there, and then you finish off from there. Afraid to say this has become a bit of an art. One of those things you can go on and on and on with another little skim, try it again, and there really comes a time where you go, well, that's good enough, and leave it at that. I'll say that was good enough. Now we do the bottom one, which was quite a big dent on that bottom area, so I'm going to load it up in that middle area, and then give it a nice rub down this one might need an extra skim. The dent was a little bit bigger than the other ones. Put the filler on, now we're going to rub down the filler. Allowed it to dry. The conditions are warm. They dry, literally they can dry within a couple of minutes. If it's cold, it could take as much as 20-30 minutes to dry. So you need to put your hardener in accordingly. The more hardener you put in, the quicker it's going to dry. As I say, if it's hot, you've still got to put a sensible amount in, otherwise it won't dry. Might be an idea to mix up a little bit, try it, and then once it goes off, you know how long you've got to work with it. So now we're going to rub some of these repairs down. Need to have a face mask, because there's thousands and thousands of particles coming off of this every second, so you need to protect yourself. For rubbing down, I start off with a very coarse paper, which is a 40 grit, and it's very, very coarse. And I go from 40, I've got 60 here, which is a lot finer. And then I'll finish off the repair with a 180. As you can see how much finer that product is. On the big repairs, I'll use a bigger block. For the smaller repairs, obviously I'll use a smaller block. The art is sussing out when to go from one grade to the other. When you first start off rubbing it down, you need to use a coarse one. As the shape starts to get nice and smooth, you then need to go to the finer ones. Because if you don't, when the repair is all nice, you'll have massive big scratch marks in there which you need to remove. So start off on the coarse one, keep checking it, give it a good little rub down, check it, and as repair comes down nice, then go finer, and then as that repair comes out nice, then you go to the real fine one to remove all your scratches. So I'll do the little repair first. Put my mask on. I'm going to start off with a 60. Doesn't really need the really coarse one. Just bear in mind, wherever you rub down with this paper, you've got to prime. So always try and keep them small, especially on the metallics. I normally start off with the flat action, just rubbing backwards and forwards, and as you get to the end, you then go to the circles, which takes out those scratch marks. I'm now on the 180, finishing off the repairs. You can see on the outside, these nasty scratches. They will have to be removed. If you don't remove them, those scratches will come back when the car goes in colour. Lovely. It's all ready now for the final rub down around the surrounding areas. Get rid of the last few scratches, and that is ready to go into primer. Right, we'll move to the bigger area. As we've done before, open the door, close the inside latch so the door stays away from the rest of the bodywork, so when you're rubbing this area down, you're not scratching everything else. If you scratch it, then it needs to be re-prepped up, and then that needs to be primed up as well. So always try and keep the repair area as small as possible. I always feel it with my hand, just to make sure where the high spots and where the low spots are before I start rubbing down. Because every repair is slightly different, and as I'm rubbing my hand down, I can feel this area here has got a bit higher filler than what this area here is. So I'd make a point of rubbing this bit down first and then finishing off with the other side. This damage at the bottom was quite a bad one. So I'm going to tackle that one first, get above where I'm working, so I'm putting all my body weight into rubbing it down. Give it a little tap, remove the top layer of dust. All the time, fill it with your hands, take your time to try and work out what parts are high, what parts are low, what bits need to be rubbed down and what bits don't. You can see there, there's a little low spot area there. The rest of it is still a bit proud. And there seems to be a big high filler area there. And this is all, there's a bit high there and a bit high there. So, rub those areas down a little bit more. Always rub the whole area down as one area, don't just do one little bit, because otherwise this area then will become low and this will become high. So you need to try and work out the best way of rubbing that high area down and catching this area so the whole repair will all come down and be nice and flat. You can see now how where that lump of filler was over the top there, that's all gone. That's all pushed into that area there now. So you know you're getting there. This will need another skim up, so because of it I'm going to stick with the 40. There's no point going to a finer bit of paper if I've got to re-skim it up again. You can now see the transformation from how it used to look to how it looks like now. To be honest with you, that's come out quite nice, so I'll hit it with a finer paper. That's gone on really nice, and that's rubbed down lovely. Still a few little impurities on there that I'm not 100% happy with. So from now, I'll rub down the third repair, and then I'll probably give this a very light skim of the finer filler with this one as well. And that will be it, job finished. And that's how to do the filler work on the car body. Get it ready for going into primer. Hope what we've explained to you today has come in useful. If there's any other problems, you can check out our website or give us a phone call, and we'll be glad to help you out.